Yeah, hi, I'm Paul Archer. I want to talk to you for a few minutes now about land registration. Because when we're dealing with mortgage purchase, or also house purchase and mortgages, the house itself, we need to know how it's conveyed and how it's all put together legally. And one of the aspects of property ownership is that the government, in England and Wales this is, will maintain records of all the property and land that's been bought and sold in England and Wales in what's known as land registry, based in London, and that's known as land registration. Now, since 1990, and I'll put a little date up there for you, since 1990, land registration has become compulsory. In other words, if you buy, sell property or land, since 1990, you have to register it with the in the database. Prior to 1990, you didn't have to, it was voluntary, which most people didn't do so because it was a cost involved. Now, when you register property with the land registry, so you're buying a new home, for example, you have to get the land registry changed to affect your new ownership. But in the land registry, you need to be aware of the three books, if you like, the three registers which are available in the land registry. But of course, the basic advantage of registering your property is that the state guarantee your ownership, and that's particularly important. So what are these three books, if you like? The first one is known as the property register. There we go. The property register. Now, this contains details about the property itself, or the land. Most people recognise this by seeing the big map. You have an ordnance survey map, and the map itself shows, the streets that your property is in. It's got your property there, for example, and it's also got the boundary, typically, in which your property has. It's a blown-up ordnance survey map, really, which has your property on there. Now, the important thing is that you'll have your title number next to that as well. Now, your title number is the official number, of course, of the property that you have. And that's particularly important. That's known as the property register. The other register that you have is known as the charges. The charges register. And this does as it says on the tin, doesn't it? It keeps details about the charges that you have on that property. And it'll have historical details as well. So if, for example, you have a first charge with ABC Bank, which of course I've made up, it'll show that charge there for you. And that means, of course, you have a legal charge on the property, or the lender does. Therefore, you have to adhere to that legal charge. You can have all sorts of charges on there. Second charge may be registered there. Third charge. It could be charges, bankruptcy charges, and all sorts of different, the legal advice charge as well from the Citizens Advice Bureau. All sorts of different charges can be contained in the charges register. The third one is known as the proprietorship. That's a big one, isn't it? Proprietorship register. And this always reminds me of when I used to visit pubs. Don't go to pubs much these days, but when I used to visit pubs, you walk through the big door, and at the top of the door you've got the name of the people who own the pub, or I should say the tenants. It would always have proprietors, H.G. Smith and F.G. Smith, proprietors. So you'd always say, "Good evening, Governor. Good evening, Mrs. Smith. May I have a pint of beer?" Whatever it was. Proprietorship, though, is who actually owns the property and what kind of ownership they have. And that's particularly important when it comes to CMAP. You need to be aware of these things. So basically it's telling you who actually owns the property. And there are 4 different types of ownership category that you need to be aware of. The first one is known as absolute. Now, if you have absolute title to the property, this means that you own the property, it's yours, you own it forever. There's no doubt, there's no dispute at all. In fact, that's exactly what lenders require when they look to take this property on as a charge under a legal mortgage. They're looking for this property to have absolute title, because there's no doubt about it and the state will guarantee it. The second one can be qualified. Now, a qualified title is not good. A qualified title means that there's a qualification to the title. There's a condition attached to the title. It could well be that some of the land maybe is in dispute with a neighbour, and that could cause the qualified title. Lenders are not comfortable with qualified titles. If there's a qualified title, the lender will ask that the solicitor investigates that and gets it into an absolute status, because lenders, of course, if you don't make your payments, will want to repossess the property, and they don't want any doubt when it comes to the title, because of course they'll take it over. Couple more for you. Possessory. Now, possessory title is where you've gone to register your property with the land register in London, and you've provided proof that you own the property, but you haven't got any title deeds available to you. Now, the title deeds, a bit of an old-fashioned thing, but the title deeds are the bundle of documents that you used to get when you owned a property. We bought this house, for example, which is next door, and it's 200 years old. When we bought it, I was given all these title deeds and all these documents. It's a really box file, and it was fascinating to look through. Stuff dating back to 1852 and that kind of thing. Really interesting. Now, they're known as the title deeds, and you give those to the solicitor, who then registers you with the land register. And therefore you get your absolute title. But if you don't have any title deeds, maybe they've got burnt or you've lost them or something like that, then you have to apply for possessory title, which is purely a temporary title, and after a period of time you can then apply for your absolute title. Often it's used for squatters, squatters' rights. People move into a property, they try and get the property registered, they provide evidence of living there, but they haven't any title deeds, so they get their possessory title. More about that a little bit later. The last one for you is known as good lease. There you go. Good leasehold. Nothing wrong with that. A leasehold, of course, is a flat, typically, an apartment where you don't have freehold ownership, and a good leasehold means that you have good leasehold title. So there we have the three property charges and proprietorship books, if you like, or sections within land registration. And these naturally get occupied for the property that you have. Now, when you're buying a property, you need to get the house that you're buying, or the flat that you're buying, registered with the land registry, which is why there's a fee called the land registry fee. And you might, for example, have £200 or £300 to pay, and that goes to the land registry to have it all amended and changed and those good things. And that's why, of course, you need a solicitor to do that for you. If you're selling a property, naturally you need to have the details changed as well. So that's a few moments there for you on land registration. Hope you found that useful.